Ken Murphy said it the other day. He said, man, that never gets old. It never, ever gets old. Look, before I start, though, I've been wanting to come back here since opening night and set the record straight. Ken Murphy happened to mention, maybe I left the company, but I keep showing up. And then Corey Ludens had the audacity to suggest that I yawned when he was up on stage. And honestly, both those things are true. They were true. Maybe I do show up a good bit when I've left the company. And I did yawn, but seriously, it was late in the afternoon. I hadn't had my nap. I was a little bit tired, so maybe a tiny yawn. So Corey, consider this my public apology to you wherever you are. You're never boring. So well, my name is Craig, and I'm super excited to share this time with you guys today over the next 19 minutes, knowing as we move towards the end of this today that this conference ends, and it also brings a substantial change for me in my life. I did leave the company. April 1st was my last day with the organization, so I'm in week number 5. And it has certainly been a change in where and how I spend my time. Now, some of you, this may be new to you. You're like, hey, I didn't even know that guy left the company. Wow. It's true, and it wasn't a real dramatic story. The fact was that the role that I had wasn't providing as much value to the organization, and for me, it wasn't providing the same level of engagement and excitement that I had had in the past. And I knew it was time to make a change. And I'm really grateful to Steve and Ken for allowing me to do it smoothly. Thank you, guys. Now, there's probably another group of people here who are like, wait, who is Craig Mcandrews? And like, should I even know if he works here, if he doesn't work here? Well, for those of you in that group, no, you shouldn't. Don't worry, I can catch you up real quick. Because I just finished what amounted to an 18-year run with the organization. I had a chance to serve, thank you. I had a chance to serve in a variety of different capacities, a number of different roles, and I can only say this. It was literally the greatest season of my professional life. And in fact, this idea of season and season change really serves as the inspiration for my talk this morning. You see, I think seasons really determine how the world goes round. Think about it. I mean, we're all in retail, and right now we're preparing for the summer selling season, right? And then we're going to get into August, and we're going to have back to school season. And in this organization, I mean, we got like the 13th month and the 14th month. I mean, we create seasons. The idea of seasonality, though, helps galvanize a group of people towards something that's really exciting that's coming. We do it in retail to drive performance. We also see it in other areas like sports. I mean, when I talk about sports, who doesn't think about their favorite season? I happen to be a big NFL fan, so when August rolls around, I start to pay really close attention to what my team is doing in the preseason, getting ready for things to start. Now, some of you might be like big baseball fans, and you get really excited about opening day. Quite honestly, I don't get it. There's 162 games before you even start the playoffs. I mean, how can you even get excited about that? But I know that people somewhere out there, someone's going, dude, what's wrong with you? I will explain to you why baseball is awesome. In sports, when the seasons change, we get excited. And then who can forget the way the world works with winter into fall and spring and summer? Now, if you're from Wisconsin or Minnesota, do I have anybody Wisconsin, Minnesota? There you go. So I say winter, and maybe you think, cold, don't love it. Maybe you do like it. Or I say winter, and you're from like Florida. Any Florida? I say winter, you guys think, man, I love winter. That's a great time of year. See, seasons are subjective. I know, yeah, only 2 days you get for the winter time, but it's very subjective. So for the sake of our conversation today, I'd like for you to think about seasons in terms of good seasons and bad seasons. There's really good ones and really bad ones. So when I go back to my early season at Mattress Firm, January of 1999, I remember it like it was yesterday because it was filled with excitement, like many of you. One of the things we all have in common in here is we all had a first day. And it was filled with excitement. And when I think about some of the characterizations of those, or characteristics of those great seasons, I think about things like really fulfilling work, great relationships, and quite frankly, selling a whole lot of beds to people as they came in. But then I also think back to maybe some of the more difficult seasons, some of the bad seasons. Now, those seasons were characterized by conflict, tension, frustration, not a lot of cash, low profits, not many people coming into the store, and in a lot of cases, not selling a lot of beds. But as many of you know, if you experience life at all, the idea of good seasons and bad seasons is how things ebb and how they flow. You cannot have good seasons without bad seasons. They just don't work that way. I've had some great seasons at Mattress Firm. I've had a chance to stand on the NASDAQ when the company went public. I had a chance to be honored as a Spirit of Life Award winner with the company. And I think back through all the memories that I've experienced over the last 18 years, they've all been awesome. My hope is that anybody who comes into this organization can have that type of experience that I had. But let's face it, bad seasons happen. You could argue right now, what season are we in here at Mattress Firm? Some people would suggest it's rough. I've heard a lot of the bed talks this week that talk about some of the challenges that we have. Well, many of you may not know the history of this organization clearly, and I'd like to take you through a really quick back to the future type of discussion. But if you go all the way back to the 90s, when Mattress Firm was booming in their growth in Houston, Texas with 4 stores. 4. First, we started with the idea of opening this really cool furniture store. Wherever Harry is, he was probably laughing right now. That didn't quite work. But then competitors came into the marketplace, and for the very first time in the early 90s, the Mattress Firm organization was faced with declining sales, comp store pressure. It was a new phenomenon for a company who had opened up and was used to fast growth. But Steve Stagner talked about it on opening night when he quoted that first line of the original business plan. Paul, Harry, and Steve knew they were in the people business. And they focused on people, and they reinvented during that time. And in fact, they ended up picking up stores from competitors in the Houston area. And in one particular case, there was this store that they really wanted was a high-volume store. But the landlord was going to require them to take a second store, which was a really big, kind of not in a great part of town store that they had no interest in. But they were opportunists in a growing organization, so they went ahead and did the deal. And that second store, that big store, not a great part of town, at 5815 Gulf Freeway, turned out to be a fairly iconic location for the organization over time, as it served as the corporate headquarters for almost 16 years, I think. But they reinvented the business, refocused. And it followed that tough time followed with some great years. But then in 2001, the company really faced some challenges. And in fact, I spoke with then CEO Gary Fazio, who had been on the job for a whopping few months, when then CFO Jim Black walked into his office on April 4th of 2001. Now, if you know Gary Fazio, he had attention to details. I mean, he's like, Craig, April 4th, 2001 at 10:42. Jim walked into my office, and Jim said to me, Gary, we've lost $2 million, and we're out of cash. And then Jim left. I don't know if Jim's around. Jim may not recall the story exactly like that, but that's exactly how Gary recalls the story. We lost money. We have no cash. We have a major problem. For the next several years, Mattress Firm would actually vacate 9 markets. They would transition stores to companies like Sleepy's and Mattress Discounters. But during that same time, Mattress Firm reinvented themselves. During that same time, a new store concept was developed. A new marketing strategy was created. More money was put into people and education. Mattress Firm reinvented. And guess what happened after 2001 and several years after? Some really, really great seasons for the company. And then I know some of you were around in 2008 when the recession happened. Comp store sales were massively pressured. Profits were less, cash was less. But yet during that same time, again, the organization reinvented. The organization developed some really, really sophisticated financial disciplines. They developed a completely new way to deploy advertising dollars. Ask Carrie Forbes. She can explain the whole system to you. But it was during that time that the company reinvented how they operated. And you could sit there today and say, you know what? The rest is history. Because there were some really good years after that. My point is that there have been some tough years in this organization since the early days. But this company has a winning DNA. So my question to you is, what season are you in when you think about yourself? Would you call it a good one? Or would you describe it as a bad one? Because I actually think mentally we all have the opportunity to think that next season, where we're headed, is the best season. In fact, I not only think we have an opportunity to think like that, I actually think there's a way to take this idea of seasons and engineer your own personal development plan. If you want to become the leader, not that you are today, but the one that you want to be in the future, this personal development plan and the idea of seasons can help you. And it's a real simple approach. I like to think about it in terms of first we start with an off season. The off season is a time where you get a chance to kind of reflect and recalibrate on what you have been doing, good or bad. Now, don't get caught up in the fact that this is kind of a time thing. You might take an hour, a half a day, a week. I don't know what your schedule will allow. I know for me personally, over the last several years, I made it a habit. I would take one Friday every 4 to 6 weeks, and I'd work away from the office. And I would specifically spend that day either sharpening a leadership skill that I wanted to develop in myself, or we'd take a look at some strategic project that we were working on with our team that we know we wanted to bring to life in the organization. And I'd get a chance to really think and plan on that. I engineered my own off-season, really with the design of just stepping out of the whirlwind for just a little bit and to spend time and think through what are the things that I need to do, either for me personally from a leadership standpoint or with my team to take us to where we want to go. Well, everybody knows a great off-season always is quickly followed by preseason. And preseason is such a great time to practice and promote the things that we want to try to make change in our lives. In fact, my oldest son really served as a great inspiration for me in thinking about this idea of preseason. So he's a basketball player. In fact, he was going to be here today, but he had a history test that he couldn't miss or something like that. So I heard something about education earlier, so I thought, well, I don't want him to miss the history test. But he's a basketball player, and today, to be a successful basketball player, shooting the three is really important. You must have range. And for him, he realized that was something that he wanted to work on. Now, he happens to be on a team today that's more of a prep team for next year. And guess what he does all the time? He shoots the three constantly. Now, they don't always go in. If he was here, he would disagree with me. But they don't always go in, but he keeps shooting them. And he keeps shooting them because he's practicing for where he's headed when it's time to be in season. The second part of that is you get a chance to promote the change you want to make. You guys heard over and over again this week about looking to your peers for help, leaning on others. Well, guess what? If you want to make a leadership change in your skill set, ask somebody to help you. Ask the person next to you for accountability. Don't be afraid to engage your team to help make the change you want to make, whether it's for you or for the group. See, the preseason gives us a chance to practice and promote it. Because one thing we know for sure, the season and being in season is always coming. And in season is exactly what it sounds like. It's game on. That's what this organization does better than anybody out there, is game on. And during this time, this is when we activate and we adjust. I mean, no secret that the theme of the week is activate. And this is a time where we make it happen. But it's also a time we have to be flexible to adjust. It never fails that the coach or the leadership might call an audible. They might change a play. It's the responsibility of the team when in season to very quickly figure out how to execute. That's what teams do. That's what great teams do when we are in season. They figure out how they can execute. See, the reason I think this seasonality formula can create a development plan for people individually is it's exactly what it is. It's a cycle, not bound by time. You can engineer your own off-season, create a preseason, and then go in season. You could challenge your own skill set and your own development, take your leadership to a new level. So I asked you earlier, what season are you in? Well, I actually think the season for Mattress Firm, I think the very best one is yet to come, which might seem ironic that I'm no longer here in the organization. That why would I be so optimistic about the future? Well, I think there's 3 reasons that the next one is going to be the best. Number one, I do believe, is the leadership. I do think it's the greatest leadership team that exists in retail. My clap is for you all. But I want to point out something, that I think the senior-most leadership of an organization is important. And when you think about Steve Stagner and the vision that he brings and how he can see things before other people ever see it, to me is an amazing talent. And then you combine that with the motivation and inspirational capabilities of Ken Murphy to galvanize a group around a singular focus. And then you take the commitment to execution and just straight up doing things right that Kerry Forbes brings to the table. I'm just telling you right now, that's a really, really strong formula for the future. So I've worked shoulder to shoulder, some cases nose to nose, with all 3 of those folks for the last 7 years. And here's what I can tell you, is not only are they 3 of the finest leaders I've ever come across, nobody spends more time talking about how to make this company excellent for the people who work there and the guests that the organization serves than the 3 of those folks. And you know, I'm not looking for a promotion. I'm not even trying to beef up my next performance review in saying that. I say that with the sincerest of hearts that I can say something like that. They're 3 of the very best out there. And to have the organization led by those guys makes the future really, really bright. And you've heard all week about the power of the brand and the reinvention of the brand and how exciting that is for what Cicely and the marketing team and all the folks attached to that are making happen for where the company's headed. And then I just finish up with the DNA of this organization. I took you through a quick history lesson. This organization's always been about winning. It's always been about taking the bad season and turning it into something great. You can go back in history and you see it one segment of time after another where the tough times were followed by the very best times. And I think each of us have a responsibility to always think to ourselves, hey, guess what? The next season is going to be the best one. Who enters the season thinking that it's not going to be great? Good night. I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan, and I enter every season thinking it's going to be great. Despite the history that I have experienced, every season, I think, is the season. I think the next season is going to be great for Mattress Firm. Actually, I think it's going to be great for me, too. I think where I'm headed is going to be great. I don't know exactly where it is, but I'm practicing engineering my season. I'm in an off season right now, a little bit more extended than I might have thought, but I'm going to take a chance to reflect and recalibrate a bit. I'm going to recalibrate with the most favorite people in my life, which is my family. Yeah. Just so you know, I know it's always risky to have anything Dallas Cowboys, so, but I'll go ahead and do it anyway. But I'm going to recalibrate with my family, and I'm going to reflect on my own leadership skills. And then I expect to start my preseason towards the end of August into September. And I'm going to do what I love to do, is I'm going to get a chance to teach. I'll be a part-time professor at the University of Houston. I get to teach college kids how to sell, so that's kind of cool. And then I'm also going to get a chance to develop a mentoring program through the church that I attend. And I'm going to spend my preseason developing and practicing some things. I don't know what the next in-season looks like for me. I'm not sure. But I'm going to follow this cycle. And I believe that it's going to take me to a great season. I know this season's concept is right. I know the principle is right. It was actually written about 2,200 years ago. In the book of Ecclesiastes, this great king Solomon wrote about the idea of that there is a season for everything, and there's for every purpose under heaven. To everything there is a season. My challenge to you is to take this idea and use it to develop your own leadership tools, your own leadership skill sets, and your team. You want to be the leader that the organization needs where we're headed. None of us have a crystal ball. But if we can develop a way to continue to sharpen ourselves for those around us, the idea of the next seasons being the greatest seasons are unquestionably going to happen. So I'm going to finish. I'm a little bit scared to finish. I just want to be totally transparent with 800 of my favorite friends here. I'm scared to finish. I'm scared to finish because I realized over the last 5 weeks as I've been preparing for this that I kept one foot in the company and I didn't get all the way out yet. And I know that when I walk off this stage, my 18 years are over as they have been in the past. So, I'd like to do one quick thing. I'd like my wife and my son to come up here. This is Nate of famous Be Like Nate or How Fast Is Fire from many, many conferences ago. Actually, my son's been up on the Bed Talk stage probably more than some of you even in this room, and he's only 13 years old. Sad my other son couldn't be here, but I wanted to have them join me just because my children have never known me to be doing anything except Mattress Firm. My wife has never really paid any attention to anything I did except Mattress Firm. My wife worked at Mattress Firm and sold beds at a point in time in her life. And so I just want to say to you all, on behalf of my family, thank you guys for letting me finish up the freaking most awesome season I've ever had in my life. Thank you. We're going to leave that way. Go that way.